Have you ever watched a playground game of tug of war where one side suddenly gets a big burst of strength and pulls the other side off balance? That's a bit like what's happening in our world today, but instead of kids on a playground, the tug of war is about money, power, and international cooperation. On one side, you have the United States, which has led the global financial system for decades. On the other side, a group of countries called BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, has been gaining more influence. And now, with 6 new members joining BRICS, this tug of war is getting more interesting than ever. In this script, we'll explore how BRICS expanded in 2024, why it matters for everyone around the globe, including you, and what steps the United States might take to keep its friendship strong and its influence steady. By the end, you'll understand why you're hearing about these countries working together and what it could mean for our future. So let's jump right in. Imagine you have a club at school. The club starts with 5 best friends who share similar interests. That was BRICS in the beginning. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now picture that your club has been doing pretty well. So well that other kids want to join. Suddenly your club nearly doubles in size because more people see how powerful you are together. That's exactly what happened to BRICS in 2024. The new members who joined are Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. With these 6 newcomers, BRICS grew from 5 countries to 10. Even though it's still called BRICS, it's much bigger now. Kind of like how your club might keep its name even when new friends join. Now, BRICS represents around 35% of the world's economy. That's more than a third. And 45% of the global population, almost half the people on Earth. That's a huge group of people and a lot of money, making BRICS a major force in global politics and economics. Shared goals. Many of these countries feel that the global financial system is mainly run by the United States and its friends. BRICS offers a different way of doing things, focusing on development and equal opportunities for emerging economies, countries whose economies are growing fast, but might not be as rich as the US or Europe. Strength in numbers. By joining together, these countries can have a louder voice. It's like standing up together, so they're harder to ignore. Economic and political benefits. Countries like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have a lot of oil. Iran also has energy resources. Egypt and Ethiopia bring strategic location advantages in Africa. By teaming up, they can trade more easily and invest in each other's projects. For many nations, BRICS looks like a club that could improve their economies and give them a bigger say in world affairs. That's appealing if they feel overshadowed by the usual powerful players in the global system, especially the United States. When we talk about the economy, we're discussing how much money, trade, and resources countries have. BRICS has become massive in these areas. 40% of global trade. Trade is just the buying and selling of goods, like smartphones, cars, bananas, you name it. And services like banking, software, coding, tourism. BRICS countries together make up almost half of all the trade happening in the world. 40% of crude oil production and exports. Some of the new BRICS members produce and sell a lot of oil. Oil is needed for cars, airplanes, factories, basically powering modern life. Owning a big share of oil production gives these countries influence over global energy prices, half the world's population. Think about that. If BRICS represents half the people on Earth, that's billions of voices. This means their decisions could affect everyone. One big goal for BRICS is to use less of the US dollar in international deals. Why does that matter? Right now, the dollar is the main currency countries use when they trade. For instance, if India wants to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, it often does so in dollars, even though India uses rupees and Saudi Arabia uses riyals at home. Because the US dollar is so important, the United States has a lot of power. It can impose sanctions, freeze bank accounts, or make it harder for some countries to trade. BRICS members, especially China, want to find alternative payment systems. For example, using their own currencies in trade, like rupees, rubles, reais, renminbi, or rands. This is called de-dollarization, a fancy term for using fewer dollars. It doesn't mean they'll completely ditch the dollar right away, but they're exploring ways to rely on it less. Currency swaps. This means two countries decide to trade in each other's currencies. For example, China and Russia can trade using rubles and renminbi instead of dollars. Gold reserves. Some countries are buying more gold to keep in their national vaults. Gold can act like a backup plan if something goes wrong with their currency. All these steps might sound small, but they can change how international trade works over time. When a group of countries unites, it changes the balance of power in the world. BRICS expansion is challenging the usual way things work, which many see as led by the United States, often called the US-led world order. Why challenge the US-led system? Sanctions concerns. The US often uses economic sanctions, punishments, on countries like Russia and Iran. When the US stops doing business with a country or blocks its money flow, that country can struggle economically. BRICS countries want to create systems where they can still trade and do business even if the US imposes sanctions. A voice for middle powers. Countries that aren't superpowers like the US or China, but still have decent strength, often called middle powers, feel frustrated. They want more say in how global rules are made. South-South cooperation. This term means countries in the Southern Hemisphere, especially in Africa, Latin America, and parts of Asia, cooperating with each other instead of relying on richer Northern Hemisphere nations. BRICS is a prime example of South-South cooperation. However, BRICS isn't a perfectly harmonious club. Each member has its own goals. For example, China and India have disagreements over their border. Russia has conflicts with Western countries. Saudi Arabia and Iran have had tensions for years. So while BRICS might appear united on certain global issues, it's not always going to act as one single team. De-dollarization is a buzzword we keep hearing. As we said, BRICS countries don't want to depend too much on the US dollar. But is it easy? Not really. The US dollar has been the main global trading currency for many decades. Even countries in BRICS still do most of their trade in dollars. China's alternative to SWIFT. SWIFT is a system banks use to send money across borders. The US has a lot of influence over SWIFT. China has tried to create its own system, called CIPS, Cross-Border Interbank Payment System, to reduce reliance on SWIFT. Currency swaps for energy deals. Some BRICS nations are experimenting with deals where they pay for oil or other goods in local currencies instead of dollars. Gold as a backup. Buying gold is a way to make your economy less vulnerable if the dollar's value changes suddenly. Despite all this, the dollar is still the king of global finance. Switching overnight to a different currency is extremely difficult because so many countries, banks, and businesses rely on the dollar to set prices and exchange rates. Think of it as trying to change the main language of the internet from English to another language overnight. It's possible in theory, but incredibly complicated in practice. It's important to know that BRICS, for all its growth, faces some real obstacles. Diverse interests. Each member has its own unique economy and political goals. For example, China is a massive manufacturing hub, India excels in services and technology, Russia is big on oil and natural gas, and Brazil exports a lot of agricultural products. Getting them all to agree on a single policy can be tough. Geopolitical rivalries. China and India have border disputes, and there's historical rivalry. Russia and India have been friends in some ways, but as Russia grows closer to China, India might feel uneasy. Iran and Saudi Arabia also have a history of tension. These disagreements can slow down or complicate any big project that BRICS tries to do collectively. Common currency? There have been talks about creating a common currency for BRICS, kind of like the euro for European Union countries. But many experts doubt this will happen anytime soon because these economies are just too different. Comparisons to the EU, the European Union, is a political and economic union that has a shared parliament and laws. BRICS isn't structured like that. It doesn't have a shared legal framework or central governing body. This makes it less cohesive. Because of these challenges, BRICS might struggle to present a united front on every issue. So, how is the United States reacting to all this? Well, it's a mixed bag. Foreign policy shifts. Some experts say the US should develop a special policy just for dealing with BRICS as a group, rather than only talking to each country separately. Balancing relationships. The US has important ties with some BRICS countries. For instance, India is seen as a big partner for the US in Asia. The US also has business and diplomatic relations with Saudi Arabia, Brazil, and South Africa. Balancing these relationships with concerns about Russia and China is a tricky dance. Sanctions versus dialogue. The US places sanctions on countries like Russia and Iran, but that can push those countries closer to China or cause them to form alliances with other BRICS members. On the other hand, the US also knows it needs friends and can't just isolate everyone who disagrees with it. A past president, Donald Trump, once threatened a 100% tariff on BRICS countries if they stopped using the US dollar. That approach might be too aggressive because it could hurt US businesses as well. The Biden administration has said it doesn't want countries to pick between the US and other nations. This suggests Washington might be open to cooperation. But how that plays out remains to be seen. Is BRICS going to completely replace the US-led system soon? Most experts say probably not. At least not anytime soon. The US dollar is still super strong. Plus, the BRICS nations have issues aligning their own interests. They're not all best friends with the same views on politics, economics, or even security matters. However, BRICS is becoming more significant. It offers an alternative platform for countries that feel left out by the US or Europe. That might not mean the end of the US-led global order, but it does mean the future could become more multipolar, meaning power is shared by multiple global players, not just one or two superpowers. If you've ever had a friend group where not everyone gets along perfectly, you know that it takes effort, understanding, and good communication to keep everyone happy. The US can do a lot to build better relationships with BRICS members and reduce friction. Here are some big ideas. Develop a BRICS-focused foreign policy. Why? Right now, the US often talks to each BRICS country separately. A unified approach could help America work with the bloc more effectively, especially as BRICS grows more organized. Promote economic collaboration, joint projects. The US could team up with BRICS countries to work on new infrastructure, energy, or technology projects. For example, forming partnerships to build solar power plants in India or roads in Africa. Support multilateralism, working together in global institutions. If the US shows support for fair reforms in places like the United Nations, UN, International Monetary Fund, IMF, or World Bank, BRICS countries might feel more included and less inclined to form parallel structures. Cultural diplomacy, student exchanges. Encourage more student exchange programs so American students can study in BRICS countries and vice versa. Learning about each other's cultures fosters mutual respect. Cultural festivals. The US could sponsor or host festivals celebrating Brazilian music, Indian dance, Chinese cinema, Russian ballet, or South African art. These are fun ways for people to connect beyond politics. Address shared global challenges. Climate change. Everyone on Earth is affected by climate change. The US and BRICS could work together on greener energy, planting trees, and protecting the environment. Food security. Some BRICS members produce a lot of crops, while others import food. Working together on sustainable farming can help feed millions. Build trust through non-confrontation. Less threatening language. Instead of threatening tariffs or sanctions, the US could use more diplomatic language. Dialogue can help solve conflicts more peacefully. Leverage existing partnerships. Friends within BRICS. Countries like India, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and South Africa already have decent relations with the US. The US can strengthen ties with these countries and maybe bridge gaps with BRICS as a whole. Address internal divisions. Smart diplomacy. The US could tactfully engage with each BRICS member. For instance, supporting India's concerns if China acts too aggressively. This might help the US keep some influence. Innovate around development needs, infrastructure, and healthcare. The US could partner on big projects that help everyday people in BRICS countries, like building hospitals or roads. This can make the US look more friendly and less like a rival. Avoid viewing BRICS as an adversary. Look for common ground. The best approach might be to see what the US and BRICS can accomplish together instead of focusing solely on differences. Trade and investment partnerships. The US can negotiate special trade deals with individual BRICS countries. For example, if the US signs a deal with Brazil focusing on agricultural products and green technology, both sides benefit. Another deal could involve India, highlighting technology and artificial intelligence. US BRICS Business Council. Setting up a formal council for American and BRICS companies to talk about trade issues could help remove red tape, complicated rules, and encourage more business investments. Financial cooperation, including BRICS currencies. Sometimes, a country's currency can be used as a reserve currency, which means central banks around the world keep it in their vaults. If the US recognizes the potential of some BRICS currencies, it might ease tensions about dollar dominance. IMF and World Bank reforms. If the US supports giving BRICS countries a bigger voice in institutions like the IMF or the World Bank, it shows respect for their growing influence. Technology and innovation. Joint R&D, research and development. Working together on AI, biotechnology, and clean energy. American companies or universities could collaborate with Indian institutes or Chinese tech firms to develop new inventions that benefit everyone. Tech transfer programs. Sharing technology know-how can build goodwill. For example, teaching new farming techniques or renewable energy setups in African BRICS countries like South Africa or Ethiopia. Development initiatives. Infrastructure. The US could co-fund highways, bridges, ports, and railways in developing regions. This might look like competition for China's Belt and Road Initiative, but it can also be done in partnership, focusing on transparency and sustainability. Public health. Collaborate on building stronger healthcare systems, especially after experiences like the COVID-19 pandemic. This might include vaccine research or hospital partnerships. Energy cooperation. Renewable energy projects. The US could partner with BRICS members on solar or wind energy farms. Some states in the US have lots of expertise in these areas. Energy forums. Creating a US BRICS energy forum could spark ongoing discussions about how to manage and share energy resources efficiently. Agricultural collaboration. Sustainable farming. The US Department of Agriculture, USDA, could share advanced techniques for water conservation or pest control with BRICS nations that have large farming communities. Food Security Initiative. A joint program focusing on ending hunger globally could be a huge public relations win and help many people. The New Development Bank, or NDB, is like the BRICS version of the World Bank. The NDB funds infrastructure and sustainable development projects, mainly in BRICS countries, but also in other emerging economies. How could the US interact with the NDB? Joint investment funds. The US could invest alongside the NDB in specific projects like renewable energy plants in India or road construction in Africa. Working together might reduce suspicion that the US opposes everything BRICS does. Financial cooperation. US banks or institutions could buy NDB bonds or co-finance projects. This could lead to better relationships and might give the US some influence over how NDB funds are used. Technical assistance. American experts in finance, engineering, or environmental science could share best practices with the NDB. That could improve project quality and sustainability. Benefits of working with the NDB include shared goals. Many NDB projects, like clean water, green energy, and modern transportation, are good for the planet and for people everywhere. Ties to emerging markets. By helping fund projects in BRICS countries, the US could grow its own exports and create job opportunities at home. For example, an American solar panel company might sell products to a solar farm funded by the NDB. Building goodwill. Working with the NDB can show the US is open to a fairer world order, which might reduce anti-US sentiment in some nations. No decision is without risks. If the US supports the BRICS NDB, there could be some downsides. Reduced global financial influence. Supporting the NDB might make the dollar less critical in global trade. Over time, that could weaken the US's ability to use sanctions or financial tools to shape international affairs, empowering rivals. Some BRICS members like Russia and China might gain more clout, which might conflict with American security or foreign policy objectives. Competition for development projects. The NDB's success could overshadow organizations where the US has more say, like the World Bank or the IMF. This might lead to an institutional rivalry, financial instability. If the NDB takes on risky projects or does not follow strict lending standards, there could be financial crises that indirectly hurt the global economy, including the US domestic political backlash. Some lawmakers or the public might disapprove of supporting an institution tied to countries like Russia or China. This could become a heated issue in American politics. The US needs to carefully weigh these risks against the benefits. Sometimes actively engaging with another power is safer than ignoring it. It might also be easier to guide or influence an institution if you're part of it in some way. Multipolar means many poles or centers of power. The opposite would be a unipolar world, where there's mainly one superpower, like the US after the Cold War. Right now, we seem to be moving toward a world where different groups of countries have their own power structures, like the US and its allies in NATO, the European Union, and on the other side, BRICS. This doesn't mean constant conflict. It can also lead to healthy competition or even new partnerships. But it does mean the US can't assume it will always be the main leader. More players are entering the stage, and the rules of the game might be written together. Practical takeaways. If the US invests in building cooperative relationships, it might shape how BRICS grows and influence the new global architecture. If the US isolates itself or sees everything as a zero-sum game where one side's gain is another's loss, it could miss out on opportunities and drive more countries into BRICS's open arms. So, we've covered a lot. Let's sum up the important points. BRICS expansion. 6 new members joined BRICS in 2024. Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. This expansion makes BRICS even more powerful economically and politically. Economic strength. BRICS now counts for 40% of global trade, 40% of crude oil production, and about half the world's population. They want to reduce reliance on the US dollar and explore their own payment systems. Geopolitical shakeup. The group's rise challenges the US-led global system, but internal rivalries within BRICS could limit how unified their approach is. De-dollarization. BRICS members are exploring ways to trade in their own currencies or gold to avoid US sanctions. Still, the dollar remains dominant for now. US response. The US might develop a special foreign policy for BRICS. It should probably build economic partnerships and promote dialogue rather than rely on threats or tariffs. Challenges for BRICS. BRICS countries have different political and economic systems. Rivalries, border disputes, and diverse goals make it hard for them to act as one single unit. Future outlook. BRICS likely won't overturn the US-led system immediately, but it's shaping a more multipolar world. The US can't ignore this. It needs to figure out a smart way to engage. You might wonder, I'm just a student. What difference can I make? The world is made up of billions of individuals, each with a unique voice. As you learn about global politics and economics, you become a more informed citizen. That means stay curious. Keep reading and watching the news, even about countries far away. You'll understand more about how the world works and how events on the other side of the globe can affect your life. Ask questions. If you think your local representative or community leader doesn't talk about global affairs, encourage them to. Write a letter, an email, or raise your hand in class to start a discussion. Support fair policies. Be aware of how trade, diplomacy, and international cooperation can help solve big issues like climate change and poverty. Let your voice be heard. Talk to friends, join a club, or volunteer for organizations that align with making the world better. Think collaboratively. Understand that countries can be rivals and partners at the same time. Negotiation and cooperation often lead to better results than fighting. Educate others. Share what you've learned with your family, friends, or classmates. Being well-informed helps you spot misinformation and form your own opinions. Before we wrap up, let's reflect on why understanding BRICS matters. Even if you never travel to Brazil or China, their economic decisions can affect you. For example, if a big chunk of the world stops using the US dollar, it could influence the prices of everyday items at your local store. Or if the US invests in technology projects with India, maybe more technology jobs or inventions will come to the market that you'll someday use or even help create. Big picture lessons. Global interdependence. Every country is connected through trade, technology, and environment. A drought in one place can cause food prices to rise worldwide. A new technology invented in one country can spread globally in days. Complex relationships. Countries can be partners, rivals, or both. International relations are rarely black and white. Politics, economics, and culture all shape how nations interact. Empathy and understanding. Learning about different systems helps us understand why countries make certain choices. If you know a country's history, culture, and challenges, you can better grasp its actions in the world stage. Imagining the future. 10 years from now, BRICS might have even more members, or some members might become less active. It's also possible the group creates its own strong payment system that rivals the dollar. Alternatively, they could face internal disagreements that make them less effective. In any case, the global economy is constantly evolving, and new alliances will form. Your role, as someone learning about these issues, is to stay informed and think critically. Don't be afraid to dive deep into economic or political topics. If we all remain curious and open-minded, we can push for cooperation that benefits everyone, not just a select few. The expansion of BRICS in 2024 is one of the most significant shifts in our global landscape in recent years. It signals a desire from many countries to shape the international system in a way they feel is more fair and representative. The United States, historically the largest influencer in the global system, now finds itself in a rapidly changing environment. Whether these changes lead to conflict or collaboration depends on the choices made by leaders and citizens alike. Now that you've walked through the story of BRICS, the reasons behind its expansion, the economic and political stakes, and how the US might respond, you have a clearer view of our changing world. Remember that the world isn't just shaped by presidents and prime ministers, it's also shaped by you. Through the questions you ask, the news you follow, and the values you stand up for. Final call to action. Stay informed. Keep track of what's happening with BRICS and global politics. Read reputable news sources or follow educational YouTube channels. Share your knowledge. Talk about these topics with friends or family. Discussing ideas helps everyone learn and grow. Encourage cooperation. Whether in your school club or on the world stage, cooperation usually beats confrontation. Promote the idea that working together on big challenges, like protecting the environment or ending poverty, is more productive than fighting. Imagine solutions. If you were in charge of a meeting between the US and BRICS leaders, what ideas would you bring to the table? Think creatively and share your thoughts with others. You never know who might be listening. Remember, you don't have to be a politician to make a difference. Understanding how the world is changing is the first step toward shaping that change for the better. Thank you for reading, and keep learning about this fascinating global tug of war that is transforming our future.